This will be a description of the Quickdraw weaving program's main warp weft editor. Now the editor is available through either the edit control on the toolbar or from the view menu, edit the pattern. Now I really have three separate editors here that I can select. One of the three will bring up the appropriate toolbars, or if I select any place in the threading, tie-up, or treadling, it will open the appropriate editor. Warp and weft editors are very similar since they're doing similar things. The weft's a little bit different because they have to do lift plans. But let me stay on the warp editor for a moment. I have a range of tools, like I've got a twill tool, a point twill tool. I can copy a series of threads and paste those or paste them in a symmetric manner. And I also have a couple of specialized amalgamation tools. I can do things like cut, which will move everything else down. I can do the delete, which would clear those guys. I have multiple copy buffers here, so I can save a few threads or in a long sequence. I can keep a number of different things at different places. So I can copy those from the copy buffer back into the storage buffers. I can also export the series as text. For example, if I wanted to export it to Excel or to an image where I could deal with it in Paint. The paste would simply put back in the copied cells. I can control what my paste options are, whether I move from threading to treadling. I can control that happens. I can intersperse a copied series with a active selected series. The network tools allow me to do things like select relative positions and how many echoes I want. That's a tool extracted from Miriam Stupatinsky's Echo and Iris tools. So I turn that off. I've got a different kind of parallel tools where I can ask for echoes either to the left or the right and how far above and how many echoes I want. The amalgamation tool allows me to implement Alice Line's monograph and amalgamation. I can also select a series of threads, rotate them left, right, up, and down. So if I want to see what happens with a pattern when I rotate it, I can also insert or select whether new clicks will move things over or just replace the existing. Reverse sequences left and right, up and down. Trompet's writ sets the treadling the same as the treading. So if I ask for Trompet's writ, what I add to the threading automatically goes into the treadling. The toggle tie-up would effectively switch from a rising shed to a falling shed loom. And I can, in fact, turn the entire draft 90 degrees or undo that. And the spread will allow me to spread the load on one shaft to multiple shafts. In this case, it's not going to do much. The warp color controls allow me to select a series of colors. I can select the warp to any color I want, or I can set up a series of colors. So I want to do the warp in red and yellow. And I can ask for that rotations every other thread. I can spread that evenly across the pattern, randomly set it each time, or I can actually control it by shaft if that's more convenient. And I have similar control on thread size. So if I want to make all the threads small, or I want to make all the threads a little bit oversized, then I can also go through and alternate threads by the same controls so that it gives me that flexibility. So if I put the warp and the thread back, I also have the ability of importing a file from Excel where the threading sequence is numerically controlled, as well as to identify a name associated with a block of threads and be able to reference that by clicking in the appropriate thread icon. To add that annotation, I can now select that group of threads just by clicking on the annotation up there. So I turn that off. And down at the bottom of the screen here is going to tell me how many actually warp threads and weft threads. The maximum float is always going to be there. With this, I can see 3 thread floats in the pattern. And whether there's anything in the copy buffer or how many threads are currently selected can be convenient. So that's warp, and weft would be very similar. Let me go to the weft. Now the only difference is I've also got the ability to handle multi-treadle where I can only have one warp selected at a time unless I'm doing a draw loom. But on the weft, I can have multi-treadle, I can have lift plans. So that would be the only difference there. Now, the tie-up I've got similar functionality. If I select the entire Tieup, I can rotate it around left, right, up, down. Similar, I can import the text strings for the Tieup. I can reverse it left, right, up, down. I also have the ability to handle quarter Tieup so that I can select how I want the Tieups to arrange if I have a more complicated pattern. So that gives me the basic overview of the Warp, Weft, and Tieup editor.